Hello, everybody, and welcome to this introduction to Virtual Scientific Sessions 2020. My name is Mitch Elkind, and I'm the president of the American Heart Association, and I'm here with Dr. Don Lloyd-Jones, president-elect of the American Heart Association and chairman of this meeting. Hey, Don, how's it going?
Oh, it's great, Mitch. Thanks so much for having this overview of sessions this year. We're really excited about it, as you know.
We're really looking forward to sessions this year, and I think that this virtual format, really provides a lot of tremendous opportunities. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So as you mentioned, we've pivoted to an entirely virtual format. It'll be November 13th through 17th this year. So we've expanded to 5 days so as not to overload people's weekends or any of the specific days. And in general, there'll be programming from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central, as well as from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central, each of those 5 days. And that's where we'll present the featured science. But in addition to that, there will be a lot of on-demand things that people can access, not only during those 5 days, but actually people who register can get the content, all of the content, up through January 4th of 2021.
Terrific. That sounds great. So I know we have a lot of really interesting sessions planned. The opening session, I think, promises to be very exciting with some very high-profile leaders in the field. We have Dr. Brownwald and Nanette Wenger who will be speaking. That'll be very exciting. We also have a presidential session at which we'll hear from myself, as well as some of the awardees of this year's Top Science Awards, which promises to be very exciting. And then I know that we're also going to have a session devoted to structural racism, which has become such an important topic this year. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that session.
Yeah, that's right, Mitch. And just to circle back, I think we're all looking forward to your presidential session and the speech that you're going to give, which I've had a little preview of, and it's really wonderful. So thank you for your leadership on that. I would also thank you for your leadership to note that the 6 awardees of the major awards that are given during presidential session, thanks to your leadership this year for the first time, are all women leaders in cardiovascular science and cardiovascular medicine. And that is a remarkable statement. I remember they are amazing, amazing individuals. And I think it will be wonderful to celebrate all of them in that session. But as you mentioned, obviously one of the themes of 2020 has been the awareness, finally, of structural racism as a public health crisis. And so one of our featured sessions at 9 a.m. on Saturday will actually address this very thing. And we'll have 2 keynote speakers, Dr. David Williams and Dr. Lisa Cooper, who will frame the issues for us. And then we'll have a robust discussion with leaders from government and public health, from industry, from training and education venues, as well as from research, to try to get to the conversation started about some of the solutions that need to happen to address structural racism as a public health crisis. And this will follow closely on the presidential advisory, which will be published just a few days before sessions, that you've really taken such a leadership role in helping AHA to pull together and to publish.
Well, thanks, Don. And I'm really happy that Scientific Sessions will be featuring this issue so prominently. I hope that has a tremendous impact. In addition, I know that we have a number of really great sessions planned that will highlight some of the late-breaking science that's come about in recent months. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about some of the heart failure trials and prevention trials that we can expect to see at sessions.
So in our first session, we'll be featuring a major heart failure multi-center trial, a phase 3 trial of omecamtiv mecarbil, which enhances cardiac contractility. And you and I were both alive in the 1990s, so we know that these drugs that enhance cardiac contractility often improve heart failure outcomes, but there's often a concern about enhanced mortality with these drugs, rather through ischemic or arrhythmic mechanisms. So I think there's going to be real interest. We know the top-line results were positive here. That's already been put out in the press, but we don't know the nuances. So I think the discussion is going to be particularly important for this trial. We also have a trial of, it's called Invested, of high-dose versus low-dose flu vaccine in heart failure patients. What could be more appropriate for this year? And then a trial of iron supplementation in hospitalized heart failure patients, which has been something I think we've wondered about for a long time. On the prevention front, we have some very exciting trials as well. the TIPS-3 trial, which is a polypill trial, finally an outcomes trial with or without aspirin, looking at the effects of a polypill on cardiovascular events in a large group of patients, as well as some trials focused on fish oil. This keeps coming up. Does fish oil supplementation prevent cardiovascular disease events? And in one of the trials, the Vital Rhythm trial, can it actually prevent primary prevention of atrial fibrillation? So lots, I think, to look forward to on the heart failure and prevention fronts. But I know something near and dear to your heart, of course, is the THALES trial, which will be a trial looking at different management of antiplatelet agents in stroke. So if you would tell us a little bit about that one and what to look forward to.
Sure, Don. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so I'm a stroke neurologist, of course, and the stroke field's a little bit different from the cardiac field in that dual antiplatelet therapy has had a much more challenging time of it. We haven't seen the same kind of evidence supporting dual antiplatelets, at least long-term, for stroke prevention that you have for heart disease. So we're going to see the results from the THALES trial, which is looking in about 11,000 patients at the combination of ticagrelor and aspirin versus aspirin alone. So a dual antiplatelet versus single antiplatelet strategy. And this, I think, could have large impact on the field depending on what the results show. So I think people will be very excited to see those results. I know, we haven't really touched on it yet, but one of the big issues, of course, of the last several months is the COVID pandemic. And we've all been I think, greatly affected by it and surprised by the extent to which this impacts cardiovascular disease and involves our practices. And so I was wondering if we could say just a little bit, perhaps, about the COVID-related sessions that I know are planned for scientific sessions.
Yes, so among our featured sessions, you're absolutely right. We have 4 particularly high-profile sessions that I'd love our registrants to make sure that they attend. The first is actually a review of the AHA's research consortium on COVID. As you well know, because you were involved in getting these grants rapidly out the door, AHA has funded 12 different centers across the country to look at different aspects of COVID. And we're already seeing preliminary results from those rapid research grant consortia sites. And so many of those will be featured in one session. In addition, AHA also has leveraged its Get With the Guidelines registries in order to create a new registry just for COVID patients that are hospitalized. Excuse me. So we'll see the results of that registry, as well as some other large EHR-based registries from across the country. There's a session focused specifically on COVID and its impact on the cardiovascular system. And we're excited about that one because Dr. Anthony Fauci will be joining us as part of that session. And finally, we'll check in with our sister societies across the globe. We have speakers from 6 different countries to talk about their experience with COVID and insights into treatment, particularly for the cardiovascular complications of COVID as well. So lots of COVID-related content. While I think it has led to some fatigue in all of us, it remains a major problem, as we all know, and we need to get better and better in our care for these patients.
Sure. It will be really exciting, I think, to see the results from that rapid response research grant program, as well as from the registry. And of course, I think many people will tune in to watch Dr. Fauci and some of the other research presentations as well. So that's really terrific. So we've talked a lot about the kinds of presentations that will be given at sessions. I want to ask you about some of the innovative things I know you've done to change the way in which we approach this meeting and people's experience of the meeting. You've created this concept of virtual co-pilots. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I think it's so much harder to navigate and actually network at these virtual meetings. So we've really put a premium on the ways people can interact, can engage with the science, and feel as if they're really a part of the room where it's happening. So one of the things we've done is create this new concept of the virtual co-pilots, and we have 20 wonderful, charismatic AHA volunteers who have agreed to publish their itinerary, to tell people where they're going to be when, so that you can follow your co-pilot into the room where the latest science is being presented. And they will be actually live chatting, and engaging the participants in that room and commenting on what they're seeing in the science. So you can hitch yourself to a Clyde Yancey or someone like that who will give you real-time feedback. And then after those sessions, they'll be moving into chat rooms so you can engage even more with them and ask questions. In addition to that, you'll be able to do the usual things like the Meet the Trialist sessions and other networking opportunities so that you really do get a chance to talk to the scientists. So we put a premium on that this year because we don't want people to feel as if, even though they're joining us from across the globe, we want them to feel like they are in the room where it's happening.
That sounds great. And how can people register for the meeting? How can they show up?
Yeah, well, registration, of course, is open already. You can Google AHA Scientific Sessions or go to Professional Heart Daily, the AHA's website for professionals. And the registration is a very easy process from there. We hope you will register. And one of the great things about these virtual meetings is that we can engage our colleagues from all across the globe. So while it's often hard for people to travel and be at an in-person meeting, there's really no reason why we can't engage far more of our colleagues from across the globe with this virtual platform. So we're very excited about that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the content will be available for several months after the meeting finishes so that people can continue accessing all of the archived content through January 4th of 2021, which I think is another tremendous advantage to this kind of meeting format.
That's exactly right, Mitch. And so if you can't see it live or see it when it first pops up on the day of its presentation, there will be more than a month and a half of time where you can go back and digest that content or even see it again if you want to dive further into the science that you're seeing across sessions.
Well, that's terrific, Don. You know, I really just want to thank you for you and for your team doing such a tremendous job in pulling this meeting together, and congratulate you in advance on what I anticipate will be a phenomenal meeting. So I hope that all of our listeners will register for Scientific Sessions 2020, and we'll see everybody soon online, I hope. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Mitch.